Hello everybody, my name is Azur BS or Azur if you want to keep it short. And today I'm going to be talking kind of just like giving like a general rundown in terms of how Gundam Evolution plays and stuff like that. So for a general starter, for those that do not know, Gundam Evolution is a 6v6 type of shooter, hero shooter, very similar to Overwatch. Like, and I mean very similar. There's gonna be some similarities in terms of how some of the suits play, and in terms of just the overall general kind of feel and gameplay in terms of like, you know, the different modes and the type of pace the game has to offer. So for a bit of starter, so for right now, I'm gonna just go and choose Pale Rider, who in this case, for this game, is basically the equivalent of Soldier 76, down to a lot of the abilities. There'll be some differences with some of these suits, or in some cases they're almost identical to their counterparts in Overwatch, i.e. GM Sniper is very similar to Widowmaker in Overwatch. There are some differences here and there, but there you know, it's basically the same idea. You know, you're sniping. But in terms of just like general movement and stuff like that, you of course you can move with the WASD stuff like that on the PC, and you can also have thrusters as well, where you can hold the shift button, you can kind of just like thrust forward. It's very much like a sprint. You can also just press the left shift one time for like a dash of sorts, which is very good for like positioning and just if you want to get to like a certain position quicker than thrusters, because thrusters, while it travels farther, there's a slight bit of like momentum building in terms of just like the overall like speed kind of ramping up and stuff like that. So that's kind of in terms of like thrusters. You can also use the thrusters to hover as well, but the hover is just more like to kind of slow your landing instead of kind of hovering you up at like a double jump. It's very different. All of that is accustomed to the bottom left bar next to your HP, where there's like two little, like in the case of Pale Rider, there's two little like white bars, which the fact that it's segmented by two bars means that Pale Rider specifically can do two dashes, and this bar refills up over time. So that's what you know, so that's kind of like just general movement and stuff like that. There's also, and as you can see, also for those that have played Overwatch, the overall UI of this game is very much almost identical to Overwatch, down to like the old being, not only is it Q, but it's also literally in the middle as like a circle icon, stuff like that. Abilities are on the right along with your primary fire, and the top of the fact that your primary fire, it doesn't it's infinite ammo. You just have to, as long as you reload it, then you're good to go. So that's kind of like just the general idea in terms of kind of how general movement in the game is. There's also health packs like this, which you know, is very much like health packs in Overwatch. There are some new things though. For instance, you can ping. You can you have much, well, I mean, pinging is probably also in Overwatch as well. But the main difference is that every suit is capable of reviving teammates. Very much similar to basically, like, say, let's take for instance Warzone, where if one of your allies is down, you can go up to them and give them a revive. It takes a bit for them to get back up, but when you revive a mobile suit in this game, you bring them basically back up to around, like, normally around half HP, maybe even full HP in that case. But that's a bit of a special case because we're in the training room, so not really the same idea. So things like that. And of course, there are some suits that can revive much faster than others. Take for instance the the gun tank, for example, has an ability that allows the gun tank, and I believe also the GM sniper. I didn't check that one. Oh, the GM sniper can revive an ally from afar with the C, which it takes about the same time as you know, just a normal res. It's just the only difference is you can res a teammate from afar rather than being right next to them. Whereas the difference when I said the gun tank, the revive process for the gun tank is much faster. It's much faster. Like about normally reviving a teammate normally takes about like say 5 minutes. Or not 5 minutes, 5 seconds. But with the gun tank, reviving takes about 3 seconds. Takes about 3 seconds as well. So that's just kind of like a general kind of rundown in terms of how like most of the suits will be playing and stuff like that. In terms of like, you know, like dashing, the main difference between this game and Overwatch is that there's the thruster system, which some suits will benefit much more from from doing dashes rather than like utilizing just thrusters. With one exception being the Dawn Trooper, because of how mobile and kind of slippery the Dawn Trooper is. So that's just kind of like a general idea in terms of like how just like movement and stuff like that goes. So now let's get on to the specific suits. So first we're gonna start with Peril Rider, who with his counterpart in Overwatch is basically Soldier 76. It's, I wouldn't say exactly the same, but it's it's the same game plan. You know, you have a fully automatic rifle, and some suits in this game have the ability to aim down their sights, and for Peril Rider, it's very much the typical ADS. You know, when you're aiming down your sight, your movement slows down to a bit of a crawl instead of like being a lot more mobile. You also can't ADS while you're hovering though, so bear that in mind as well. But when you're ADSing, you know, accuracy is more, you know, accurate, but your movement specifically is much slower as a result. In terms of abilities, very much like Soldier 76, you have a heal pod. You can place down a heal pod that can heal nearby teammates. The only difference is that unlike Soldier 76, where it's kind of placed down and enemies can't really destroy it, this heal pod is not only is the hitbox a bit bigger, so it's much easier for enemies to shoot. It can also be destroyed as well. So there's stuff like that. You also have a bit of you also have a frag grenade, similar to Soldier 76's rocket, that which was, funnily enough, also the right click in Overwatch as well, since that game didn't really have like an ADS system like this game does. And this game and Peril Rider also has, for his E, is a EMP grenade, so it slows down the enemies that are basically walking through it. But the travel distance in terms of like how far you throw it doesn't go that far. It goes like just a little bit in front of you, but it does help with slowing down enemies and stuff like that. I would also say that Peril Rider is probably one of the very good beginner friendly suits. You know, one of the good suits to kind of get started with the game and stuff like that, because very, very simple game plan. You know, you're just running and gunning, you know, just gotta mow down enemies, stuff like that. Ult is very simple too. It's simply just your fire rate becomes much faster, you do more damage, movement speed is much better, like you are like you can move places. So and it's only for a bit of a time. Peril Rider is a very good beginner suit that anyone can use. Next up, we have the Gundam, the OG, the big old daddy, the RX-78-2. Now, this suit has quite a bit of versatility, I would say, in terms of like, because unlike Pale Rider, which Pale Rider is literally just straight run and gun, do damage to different enemies, stuff like that. RX-72 can do a little bit more, for instance, for starters, let's talk about the beam rifle. The beam rifle is a little similar to how McCree's revolver worked, or Cole Cassidy, since that's his new name now. Very similar to that, where like it's just one shot, but if you aim it to the head, it does a lot of damage. I mean, a lot of damage. So that's kind of the good thing with RX-78-2 is that you can that it's a bit of a slow fire rate, but it does a lot of damage when aimed at the right spots, especially the head. RX-72 also has a shield for his E, which basically you can like you put up your shield for like a few seconds. You can't fire with it though, but you can't fire with it you're basically, when you put that shield up, you're just a wall. But the good thing about this as well is that you can also dash, and you're much more mobile when you're still very mobile when you have the shield up. So that's still very good. So you can be a pseudo kind of movable wall for your teammates to kind of block some of the damage if necessary. The only thing that you have to keep in mind with this shield is that after which, first off, you can disable, you can just get out right away by just right clicking, but the cooldown, like on the bottom right, is very, it's quite long. So if you click out immediately as fast as possible, it's 10 seconds. So you won't be able to use it for like a good amount of time afterwards. So you have to keep in mind that to use this shield very wisely, instead of just like putting it up as like kind of like a panic option. You know, it's more something for your team rather than, it can be used for yourself to kind of block the damage, but it's something that shouldn't really be spammed. The RX-78-2's ult though is very good. It basically, you throw a grenade and it has it can bounce a lot of places, but it has a very, actually that was a bad place to place it, but it has a very big spread. It has a very big spread that pretty much can cover most points. One of the modes in this game is domination, which is pretty much just taking point, and it's basically like capture the point, and then you gotta protect that point until your objective percentage reaches either 100% or the highest percentage possible. So with RX-78-2's napalm grenade, it has a very big spread. As you can see, it covers this whole, like, pretty much about half of this specific training area, which is good enough to cover most of the point, most of like an objective point, which is very good for a lot of things. Good for like good for rushing into point if you want to like basically just clear the area, even though it's just very good on positioning. It's just very good for positioning, period, as well as, you know, as I said, good for like maybe rushing in, because the fire rate in terms of how much damage it like does at the speed at its fire rate for enemies is very quick. It's very quick. So that's kind of, so the only thing you have to keep in mind is learning to aim, kind of aim the grenade, because it bounces really hard, as I saw in the first attempt I had. It really likes to bounce a lot. So that's the idea with the RX-78-2. The other ability for that RX-72 has as well is the hammer. This can this has a lot of versatility. So for starters, if you just launch it at the at one of the enemies, it kind of just pushes them back and stuff like that. But the best not, I wouldn't say the best use, but one of the better uses out of using this is if you aim it at the ground, say for instance like right below this Zaku too, you knock him up. So it's you knock them up and it stuns them for a slight bit. I wouldn't say too much, but it's good enough for kind of just crowd control and stuff like that. But but it has to be like literally it shouldn't be like on the suit. It should be just it's the AoE effect that knocks them up. So like right in front of them right here, it will knock them up like that. Yeah, so it's kind of like you have to so that one, it's much better when it's like you knock up the enemy to do more damage. Well, not do more damage, just for like the utility effect. Next we have the Zaku 2 range. Now I was talking about earlier how some suits benefit from dashes instead of using thrusters. Zaku 2 is one of them. Unlike let's take for instance, actually let me go back to the RX-78 it could be good for dashing. So you see that dashing for RX-78 is pretty much just like you go you dash and then you kind of stop for a bit. Zaku 2 though, not only do you have 3 dashes at the bottom, but the dashing there's a bit of like a kind of like a bit of a slippery effect with it, which allows the Zaku 2 to travel much farther. So Zaku 2 has a lot of mobility. Can really just get into like the back line for an enemy like setup much very well, very well. One thing though to keep in mind is that if I recall, the Zaku 2 is one of the squishier suits in this game, so that's something to bear in mind as well. In terms of just the abilities, as you can see, like yeah, much faster movement speed. Fire rate is pretty fast, but it doesn't really you don't do as much damage compared to say, take for instance actually the Pale Rider, funnily enough, who also has a fully automatic weapon. So in a way, Zaku 2 is merely similar to that of a kind of disruptor. Not a disruptor, but more of a disruptor that can dish out some pretty good damage. In terms of the abilities, his stun grenade, well, it does a stun. It does a stun. That it takes a bit to detonate, but it stuns the enemy for about a good 3 seconds or so. So it's very good for like kind of catching enemies off guard. It's very good for catching enemies off guard, and then you can just kind of lay waste on them, stuff like that. His smoke grenade is his smoke grenade basically allows the Zaku to be immune to damage for like a few seconds, like about a good 3 seconds or so. So it's very good for like if you're being focus fired on and you're taking a lot of damage, you can just click you can just do your smoke grenade, and then you'll be immune just for a few seconds. Until the smoke grenade wears off. The ult though is pretty simple. It's just a dash that can pretty much go through enemies, but it doesn't really do that much damage. It's not really meant for damage. It's just kind of like it does damage, but it doesn't do enough damage to kind of be considered very strong. Like a very strong attack move. It's more better for positioning, because as you can see, I went through both of these Zaku 2s over here, so, and I just landed on the other side here, so it's much better for positioning rather than it's much better for positioning and kind of moving into that back line to maybe, you know, take down some of the squishier suits that are around. Next we have the Barbados. Barbados is what I personally label as kind kind of a DPS Reinhardt. You know, kind of the same idea because the main weapon for Barbados is the mace, which doesn't go as fast as it goes slightly slower than Reinhardt. And there's also a bit of a stop when going into the next swing. But when utilized properly, because Barbaros is actually one of the harder is what I feel is like one of the harder suits to learn in this game. When utilized properly, Barbados can be very deadly. So for starters, Barbados has 3 dashes, which is good for him because all of his attacks are close range. You have to be pretty much in front of the enemy to get out any damage from this guy, period. So that's something to keep in mind with him. In terms of other abilities, his right click is a charge move, but when you slam down on with your mace on an enemy, it knocks them to the ground, kind of like so. You have a lot of knockdown options with Barbados. But the main use with this, or one of the better uses of this move, is on mobile suits that have shields. So people like GM, RX-78-2, Sazabi, people like them, where they have means of putting up a shield. This is good for taking out that shield when fully charged up. So that's something to bear in mind with that. In terms of other abilities, his longsword is kind of like basically just like a downward stab from the air. This has a lot of utility. So for instance, let me drop this guy down to lower HP. Normally when you disable a suit, you or like when you kill a suit, let's take this one for example. When you drop them down to 0 HP, they're considered disabled, like that for example. So in this state, that means the enemy can be revived by their teammates if they happen to get by them. So that's why sometimes you have to either wait for the suit to blow up a bit, or you can destroy it yourself. With the longsword though, if you get it at the right moment when like an enemy is almost about to die, you can just do that. You can just press F and it will just kill them instantly. It will just destroy the suit instantly. There's no way for it pretty much just destroys the suit, rendering them unable to be revived by teammates. So they have to be start from square one, spawn from their spawn point, stuff like that. So they can't be revived basically. E is basically just a big jump. It travels very far and has a very short cooldown too. For a boost jump, it for 6 seconds for the distance. If you can like with like proper traveling, it goes very far. It's very good. So you can combo this with the longsword, but the main thing to keep in mind with the longsword is that the longsword travels vertically. It's very vertical. You inch a slight bit forward, but I wouldn't call that enough to be a good travel distance. You're very much going up and then going back down. The other thing too to keep in mind with the longsword is that it's also an AoE effect, where if there's any like enemy within range of that that splash effect, it can stun opponents. It can stun opponents and kind of keep them stunned for a few seconds. So let's take, for instance, let's take this one here. Or if you okay, that's an example. If you land it on top of them, if they're basically at like full HP, they will just be knocked down, similar to the right click, similar to that, for example. But the spread effect, yeah, there you go. So you can aim properly. You can stun opponents. You can stun like multiple opponents that are near you. It's very good. So And then the ult is pretty simple. You're just kind of clicking. It's good for traveling and also could be good for kills as well because, you know, you can kill multiple enemies like that, for example. But it just disables them. It's not like the longsword. Only Barbaros's longsword has the means to pretty much destroy an enemy mobile suit without and just pretty much destroy your period and no need to like disable it. Barbaros's longsword is the only one that does that. So Barbaros has the advantage in terms of that, but overall, Barbaros is one of like the harder suits to learn and understand. But once you understand kind of like how Barbaros works, because you really have to be really aggressive with Barbaros. Barbaros could be like one of the deadliest, suits you come across, and can also potentially shift the game into your team's favor when played properly. So yeah, that's Barbaros right there. Next up, we have Sazabi. Sazabi's kind of like the tank, kind of like a tank in a sense. So for instance, Barbaros's E allows Sazabi to pretty much go to any of your one of your allies, and pretty much kind of cover their fire from any of the enemies that come to you. This also applies to the F, where which is his tomahawk. You could throw the tomahawk, okay, I missed there, but you can damage enemies with the tomahawk, but you can also fly towards the tomahawk as well, to better position yourself. So Sazabi has a lot of versatility in terms of how you can play. You can like go like the DPS route, even though I wouldn't really recommend that as much unless you are kind of going crazy and wild. So there's some so Sazabi has a lot of versatility. And then when you hold the right click, not only are you able to ADS and stuff like that, but you also have your shield up while doing so you can block some of the incoming damage as well. The only thing though, while you can shoot in here, you cannot reload. You have to let go of the shield. You have to let go of right click to reload, and then you can go back to shielding. So that does take you out of it. Sazabi is also very good for giving your teammates vision. So with C, you can basically lock onto enemies, and then you can pretty much just know where enemies are for your teammates and stuff like that. It's similar to like a Widow ult. The only difference is, unlike say Widow's ult, where you can just pop the thing and then you literally just see where everyone is, where it's just straight up wall hacks. Here you have to see the enemy first, and then once they're scanned, you can look away, and then you'll know where the enemies are. So that's the only difference though, but it's very good, and the cooldown for it is not that long. It's at least for how strong this ability is when utilized properly, it's only like about 12 seconds for how the enemy search is. It's very strong. It's very strong and good, very good for vision as well. Very good for vision. So that's in terms of like the Sazabi's abilities. His primary fire is a shotgun. It's a shotgun of sorts, so it's much better up close, and you can really pop enemies with this shotgun, along with say on top of the Sazabi's ult, which is the funnels, which is pretty much just damage over time for anyone that's in range or that's in your vision and just around you, and it does a lot. The damage it does on top of like how fast the fire rate is, so kind of like, so basically the fire rate to damage ratio is so good. It's so good. In terms of just pure like shaving off HP, it's one of the best. I say it's one of the best in terms of just like shaving off all the HP and stuff like that. So if I was to do like some type of like tier list of sorts, which I probably wouldn't do that because I think this it's a little too early to kind of tell, and there could be changes once it comes out. But at the moment, Sazabi for me is one of the best units. Just like overall in terms of like that, like anyone can use, because Sazabi is not too difficult to understand. You know, it's kind of like you're pretty much just a tank. You know, you are big though, so you are much easier to be hit by enemies, since you know you have such a large hitbox. But the game plan is you can do a lot of things with Sazabi. You can kind of be a DPS, which is I wouldn't say is the best idea, but it is doable. It's more better as like a tank that can like block, that can easily quickly come to that can come to one of your allies to you know block some of the incoming damage for them, provide vision, can disrupt other enemies as well to able to get to them. Has means of like close range combat as long as a decent long range combat, and very good like just damage overall, especially with the ult. So Sazabi, I think, is like, for me, is like one of the better suits in this game. Now next we have the Metis. Metis is, I would say Metis in this game is a little similar to Mercy. A little similar. Not the exact same, but there are some similarities here. For instance, yeah, as you can see, like I have a teammate that's about to be that's about to die. I can latch on to my I can use the repair cable to pretty much latch on to my ally to basically heal them. But while doing so, you can still help with on the offense to protect them from dying. The only difference is that since they're being shot right now and I'm trying to heal them, they're still losing HP because they're in action. So you have to heal them pretty much outside of combat, or like when they're safe from enemy fire. So that's kind of that's like the general idea with Metis. Their ult is basically pretty much like Anna's ult, where you can buff one ally and then you can let that ally just go crazy, just do a lot of damage. They take less damage, they do more damage. It's pretty much just a buff. It's pretty much just the same idea as Anna's ult. Yeah, let me get this thing to die for a second. You can also, the repair cable can also revive teammates as well. So basically in terms of supporting, Metis is pretty much your go-to if you want like a very good support mobile suit. Metis is your go-to. Metis also has the means of switching into mobile armor so that you can fly around more and have a lot more mobility. You can be in the air as well. On top of also having a turret. You can place down a turret, just like Torbjorn. The only difference is, well, you can't upgrade it. It's just the one turret and that's it. Just the one turret. Yeah, and you can only place down one turret too. So that's the thing with this turret as well. And then F is just cannons. That's just extra damage. So Metis is a very, very good balance of support and offense is necessary, because the primary fire for Metis is not too bad. It's not too bad. It's decent. It's definitely it's not too bad for a support. It's just typical. I mean, it is it can be fully automatic, but it's much better, when you're tapping and stuff like that. It's much more accurate that way. So overall with the Metis, very good offense, very good balance of support and just offense as necessary. And you can always and for just latching on for the repair cable, you just need to latch on. You just need to put the repair cable on one of your allies, and then you don't really have to worry too much in terms of like just staying with them, unlike Mercy, where you have to hold on to you basically have to latch on to your your teammate to heal them all the time. You don't have to worry about that anymore. You can just like you can link it up and then you can just like look somewhere else. It's very good that way. And as you can see, the range is quite far actually. The range is pretty far. Like, yeah, like right here is like where it stops. You can you can even res them from right here. So the range of this cable is pretty far. It's pretty far. So that's for the Metis. Next up is the GM Sniper. Now the GM Sniper, as I alluded to earlier with the Pale Rider, this is basically a Widowmaker. Same idea, you're just sniping. You're basically sniping. It's literally sniping. The only difference is that unlike a Widowmaker where hip firing is was fully automatic, here it's just another shot like that. The only difference is that I wouldn't really recommend hip firing with this gun because it is very inaccurate. It's very inaccurate. So if you're playing with the GM Sniper, you have it's not recommended to hip fire with this thing because it's so inaccurate. Unlike the Widowmaker though, where you have to hold down you have to basically be scoped in and charge it up a bit to do more damage. Here, you can kind of just shoot. You're kind of just in the shooting range. So that's basic. So GM Sniper is basically just your little typical sniper. With the other thing too, the good thing though about GM Sniper is that they do have a decent bit of support. For instance, right here, I can shoot a res. I can shoot that at one of my teammates, and I can res them from afar, which is very good. It's very good, to keep your position of sniping from either higher ground or from far back. But if worst comes to worst, and you do have someone that's like rushing you, for instance, you can do a bit of chip damage by pressing F, which is just Vulcan pods. And it does like about, on this Zaku, for instance, about like half HP. So that's kind of the idea with the GM Sniper. Overall though, typically with the GM Sniper, you're basically gonna be sniping with them. And close quarter combat, that's where you may start to suffer. That's where the GM Sniper starts to suffer because of the very little options you have in terms of just any sort of close quarter combat. You also do have a jump pad. So unlike Widowmaker that had the grappling hook that lets you go to higher places, here you have a jump pad that anyone can use. It's not just for you. This is for anyone that comes in contact with it. So you can use this as a way to get it's a higher ground for you and your teammates, or you can also use it as a way to like maybe disrupt an enemy that is rushing into you. So it can be like a way to kind of like throw them off guard, and then they're kind of thrown out of position. So then you can kind of capitalize on that moment that they are pretty much just out of position, and then they're kind of just panicking and stuff like that. And the ult is literally the same thing as Widowmaker's ult. Literally the same idea. You could pop it and you got wall hacks. Literally the same idea. So overall with the GM Sniper, if you played Overwatch and you main Widowmaker, you will feel right at home with the GM Sniper. It's pretty much the same idea, except you actually have at least a few abilities that allow you to support your team instead of just being a sniper. Next, we have the Aasimar. This guy's a little interesting. For starters, his primary fire is a burst gun. So if you aren't that much into burst weapons, then then the ASMR might not be the best for you. The right click is also just like a bit of a charge shot that does a little bit of chip damage over time. It's okay. And then it's also a mobile armor, so you can also traverse around and then get to like kind of like switch positions if necessary and stuff like that. The ult is a charge that basically stuns your opponent, any opponent that you hit, for like a few seconds, and it's also good for blocking incoming damage that some of your allies may be taking. So it's very good for pushing. It's very good for pushing, especially this one, because it travels straight. It travels straight, so it's very good for pushing into points and stuff like that. The F is basically an incendiary grenade, so it's it basically just does burn damage over time and stuff like that. It's all right when you're like outside, but when you're in enclosed and tight hallways, it's very good. It's very good. So that's kind of the idea with the Ashamar. So the Ashamar is a very good just a very good offensive very good like offensive suit, very good also for pushing as well, especially with the ult, but you have to really get that ult charged up and stuff like that. Otherwise though, I would say aside from those factors, Ashamar is probably like is not a bad suit, not a bad suit, but there's definitely you could do definitely better. Like the Dom Trooper, for example. Not to say like the Dom Trooper is like the absolute like better than Ashamar, because Ashamar is pretty good, has the means of air combat. The Dom Trooper is, I would say, the best in terms of just like kind of just moving around like on the ground and stuff like that. You have, with the Dom Trooper, you have to be moving. You have to be moving and stuff like that. So if you love to like move around and stuff like that, the Dom Trooper is probably gonna be your guy. Like moving and shooting what I mean by that. So that's kind of like the general idea in terms of like specific movement for Dom Trooper. So in terms of abilities, Dom Trooper has can place down proximity mines up to 3. Now pretty much explode on contact when an enemy is nearby. However, when these explode, you can also take damage from them. It's pretty much it's not really just for the enemy. You can take damage from these mines as well, and they can also be and these mines can also be destroyed as well. I mean, I can't do it because these are my own mines, but they can be destroyed by enemies if you just shoot at them, because they're literally just placed on the ground, and then they can be shot pretty like just from any other enemies. Right click is basically just a little laser that does damage to the opponent, stuff like that. And then your C grants your allies some more HP, about like 500 more HP. So it's very good for saving an ally that's about to be disabled from an enemy mobile suit. So very good for that. And aside from those, the ult for the Dom Trooper is pretty much the same idea as the Ashamar, where when you're charging, it blocks incoming damage. But the only difference is that when you do this, unlike Ashamar, which is very good for just pushing, this type of charge has a lot more uses. So for instance, when you activate it, you're oh, okay, I must have done it wrong. But when you activate it near allies, you can give them more HP as well as more movement speed. But not only that, you don't also travel just in a straight line. You can you can control where you travel with the Dom Trooper's ultimate, and you can it also serves as a guard break as well. So for instance, if It's basically the shield breaker. So if someone has their shield up, the Dom Trooper's ultimate can basically go through that. So it's pretty good for that. It's pretty good. So so the Dom Trooper overall has very good like utility, and the primary fire is somewhat similar to that of Farah's primary fire, except not as much spread. I wouldn't say it's that much spread compared to her rockets. Next up, we have the Turn A Gundam. Now, Turn A Gundam's a little interesting, actually. A little interesting. For starters, when you ADS with Turn A, you charge up your rifle. So, and it does a lot, and it does quite a bit more damage. So, for instance, a headshot from the hipfire not charged at all does like about, oh, I'm hiding it, but it does like, I could probably get it down here too. Yeah, it does about like 180 damage. But when you fully charge it up, it does a lot more damage right there. So like, for instance, a nice headshot right there does like about a good fifth of the enemy's HP, whereas a fully charged one does just a little over half. So quite a big difference in terms of just like the damage output for Turn A, and those were only headshots, by the way. When it says critical hit, that is, in the training mode, that's headshots. So that's how the primary fire works for Turn A. Turn A also has the means of like suplexing one of the enemies. So it's similar to Volley Bear's kind of like toss throw, where like you can it helps. It's very good for like separating an opponent from their team. So it's very good for that. The only difference is that you do dash a bit, but the dash is not very far. It does not go that far. So you have to be a little bit close to the enemy when performing this dash. So performing this dash and grab. Yeah, that was like barely just missing. So you have to be pretty close. You have to be pretty close to the enemy in order to give them the nice suplex. And the ult is pretty much just you fly around, and whatever enemy is below you, you make them do chip damage and stuff like that. So it's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's just what's a little bit difficult and something you have to get used to with that ult is just maneuvering around with it. It's quite slippery. And for the E, it's the E is pretty much just regen for Turn A. So say for instance right now, taking quite a bit of damage right now, almost about to die. What do? You just pop that, and then you just have regen over time. You just have regen over time, so it's pretty good. The other general thing too with regen is that if you're not in combat and you're kind of just away from it, not getting shot at all, this applies to all suits. You will start to slowly regenerate back your HP over time if you're not in combat. So sometimes you might it might be better to just if you're almost about to die, it might be better to kind of just retreat back and maybe get some of that HP back instead of, you know, just charging in and then letting your suit be disabled. Because if your suit is disabled in the middle of a whole bunch of enemy opponents, then it not only, you know, you're pretty much disabled, you can't really do much, but you also leave it much harder for your teammates to kind of just revive you if, you know, they want you to be revived rather than, you know, respawn from the respawn point, and then you have to travel quite a distance to get back to your teammates. So that's the other thing too with like positioning as well, and knowing also when to, you know, retreat back and stuff like that. For gun tank, now gun tank is a little similar to Diva, where kind of like the primary fire is pretty much just a bunch of cannons just shooting a barrage of bullets at a good spread. For gun tank though, if you're just doing primary fire, this whole rectangle is your reticle. So for instance, these 3 enemies, I can shoot all 3 at once. It does very little damage, but you're doing damage to multiple enemies, so it's very good like damage coverage for that. But if you decide you want to focus on one enemy, you can hold the right click, and then you'll be focusing more on just the one enemy. You'll only be firing at one enemy, but you do more damage and your fire rate is much faster. F is also just cannons. It's good AoE damage, good AoE chip damage and stuff like that. E is a charge, and if you while you're charging, if you left click, you can do damage to any nearby opponents, and they will be stunned for like 3 seconds as well. So that's the idea with gun tank. The other thing too to keep in mind as well, if you really love to spray for some reason, gun tank is probably not the best for that, because while it does take a bit to get to that point, your guns can overheat, and when they overheat, you're basically on cooldown for give or take about 7 seconds, which is actually much longer than most typical cooldowns in this game. The ultimate is basically self-destruct sequence, except you can control it. You can control where it goes and stuff like that. You can make it ascend, descend, and stuff like that. It's basically, I describe that as like an airborne Junkrat ult. You know, basically a Junkrat ult with flight controls. But unlike also say something like D.Va's self-destruct sequence where you switch to pilot mode, here you just launch the pod and you explode it, and then it comes, for some glorified reason, it comes back to you, and then you can just operate like normal. So it's a little different there. It's in terms of logic, it doesn't make sense, but in terms of gameplay, it's much better. It's much better than a D.Va ult, because you know, once you do D.Va's ult, you self-destruct, and then now you're just like little D.Va piling around with a little pea shooter, and then you gotta rack up the ult percentage to get back into your suit. So it's much better there. The other thing too about the gun tank is that rezzing is much faster with gun tank. So down there is on the bottom right, it says there's a V icon for reviving. It's on cooldown right now of like 12 seconds, but when you revive a teammate, it's normally a res would be like 5 seconds. Here with the gun tank, it's about, I would say, give or take about maybe let's see here, about 2 to 2.5 seconds. So much faster. It's much faster. So but this faster revive can't be spammed. It's only based on that one skill cooldown and stuff like that. So I would say if you like D.Va, gun tank is not bad. Gun tank is not bad. The only difference would be that you know, of course, you can't really like fly to higher terrain and stuff like that, but that's fine, because this game is more grounded, I would say, compared to something like Overwatch, where quite a good number of those heroes can be in the air disrupting you. So it's much different. It's much different. Next we have the GM. So GM is kind of similar to Brigida in a way, where when you're in shield, you can hold right click to put up your shield, and then you also do like a shield bash, which does stun as well. The shield bash has a very short cooldown though, so make good use of this. Make good use of this. Make good use of it. It only has like 4 seconds of cooldown, so it's very good for that. You can still put up your shield afterwards, but you won't be able to shield stun afterwards. So it's very good for that. GM also has a heal grenade, which is similar to Anna's heal grenade. So like you just smash it on the ground, and anyone near it just gets some HP from it. So yeah, unfortunately no faster res time, so that kind of sucks. But it's basically the same idea as Anna's heal grenade. You can also GM also has the means of placing a C4 that you can detonate on your own, and it does the same does a similar idea of the burn damage to like how the Ashimar has the incinerator grenades. But the difference here is that you have to detonate it yourself. But it does do a lot. It does do quite a bit of damage though, so it's very good for that. As for the ultimate of the GM, you just throw 5 balls, and then these ones will pretty much home onto nearby enemy suits. It's okay. It does a lot of damage, but overall, you're only throwing 5 homing grenades, and they do quite a bit of damage, but it's only like the 5. So it's good for like good poking, basically. It's also very good if there's like a whole bunch of mobile suits just bunched up together in like maybe one area. So it's very good for kind of when enemies are like suddenly happen to be bunched up and stuff like that. So yeah, and also as you can see, as with the Sazabi, you can hold right click and then you can block incoming damage as well. So very good for that. So very good for like just tanking damage for some of your teammates. Very good for that. Very good. Quite a lot of versatility with GM overall. If you love to be like a lot of things, if you want to fulfill different roles, you know, you want to be like a healer, maybe a disruptor, stuff like that. Damage is okay, but so DPS isn't really the best route with this. But if you want to be like a bit of an offensive support, like I said, very similar to Brigida, GM is very good. GM is very good for that role. All right, so next up we have Exia. Now, Exia is the Genji of this game. Primary Fire is literally, for some glorified reason, instead of just the gun on the GN sword, you throw the little beam sabers. You throw the little beam daggers. And when aimed at the head, these do quite a bit of damage. Like, just as you can see on the Zaku, it does over half. Like, about 75% of the HP when all the beam daggers land on the head. And these go kind of far, actually. These go pretty far. So Exia is very good for, so Exia's Primary Fire is not too bad for the poke damage and stuff like that. So, and Exia also has a lot of dashes. So not only do you have the 3 regular dashes on the bottom left, you also have a dash in E, which is which is just another dash for you. It's nothing too crazy, it's just another dash. So Exia also has a bit of a combo system going on. So for instance, holding right click is basically you charge up your GN sword and then you just charge forward with it. When you charge an enemy with this at max charge, it stuns the opponent for like about 3 seconds. A good combo with Exia is doing the right click into your spin slash. So say for instance like this, I want to stun, do the spin slash, so they're stunned for okay, I probably timed that wrong, but they'll be stunned for a little longer. There'll be additional stun time, so you have to pretty much just do it instantly. Yeah, you have to do it instantly, and then they'll be stunned for a little longer, and then you can just like go in and then just pretty much just lay the damage on them. So Exia is very good for like rushing down on opponents and applying pressure onto onto like multiple enemies that not multiple enemies, but onto enemies that Exia comes in contact with. For Exia's ult, it is Trans Am, so this changes a lot of things. So for instance, your cooldowns are shorter. You now have 2 dashes instead of 1, and then your spin slash becomes beam sabers, which is just like basically a dash forward with the beam sabers and stuff like that. So pretty much your ult with with Exia is kind of like a go factor. It's like this is like that's like you're getting there, you're gonna go crazy. So that's basically Exia. So overall, if you love Genji, then I would say Exia is not bad for that. Not bad for that. I would say the ult's a little better though than I would say the ult's much better than Genji's ult though, because you know, as cool as it is to pull out a katana to pretty much slice up a bunch of enemies, you have to basically kill with said katana. Here, you basically just buffed yourself. Your cooldowns are shorter, you have different abilities, you can utilize some more abilities for more amounts of time and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say overall Exia is basically the Genji in this game, and a very good choice if you love that type of archetype. Like, if you like that type of archetype. Now, last but not least, in terms of the suits that we have at the moment for the closed beta, at the time of this recording, is the Marasai, specifically Universal Sentry, that's probably where it's from. Now, Marasai is a bit similar to Roadhog, where they have a hook and stuff like that. And this hook goes pretty far. There is a bit of a windup though in terms of how far the hook goes. Well, actually, wind up in terms of like letting the hook go, but the hook does go pretty far. So like, maybe not that far, but like, you can get opponents from a good distance away. So like, say for instance, I'm like right here at this farther white line. Shoot the hook, you can get the suits to, you can get the enemy suits to come to you, and then you can pretty much just lay damage on them. A good combo I've noticed as well with the Marasai is with his E. Cause the E is pretty much just a beam blade that comes out from your gun. So a nice combo would be first to hook the enemy, then let out E, and then you shoot them. And that should pretty much do most amounts. That should pretty much kill most of the smaller HP suits. Because because unlike if you say for instance you hook and then you do a shot, the shot will come out. Will take a bit to come out. But if you do the hook into the blade into a shot, your shot comes out much faster. So you say, for instance, here's the hook, blade, shoot. Much faster. Much faster. It's much faster. So that's a very good combo in terms of the Marasai. Plus, the good thing about that too is that the cooldowns for both your E and F, which are the blade and the hook respectively, they're not that long. They're not that long. They're not that long cooldowns. At most, at like 7 seconds on the hook, but the hook goes first. So it does have a bit of cooldown time before you need to use it again. So that's a very good combo to keep in mind in terms of the Marasai. Now for the ult though, the ult is basically just a kind of is basically just a stun grenade to like multiple enemies, and it keeps them stunned for like a good few seconds. So you can pretty much stun enemies, and then you can have your teammates go to town on them and then just destroy them though. So overall, Marasai has a very simple game plan and a very, very good combo. A very good combo, I would say. With the hook into the blade into the shot. Very good. It's very good. So yeah, that's pretty much all the suits we got here. So pretty much overall in terms of all the suits, that's pretty much all the suits we got at the moment. Of course things will change down the line and stuff like that, you know. We'll get more suits though. We'll get more suits that join this game, of course, and you know, maybe they will function, you know, of course they'll function differently than these suits, and maybe they will shake up the meta, if you know, and stuff like that. So overall, I would say for the future of this game, it's looking not too bad actually. Of course, you know, as I'm recording this is during the closed beta, like the second day of it. And you know, people are still trying to find out stuff like that, and you know, the game is still in development, so support devs when support the devs, you know, because I could tell that they want to make just a fun, fast-paced shooter. It does have Gundam. It is, you know, of course, it's based around Gundam, and you know, the appeal of Gundam is, you know, the suits. And some people may be turned off by the fact that maybe, you know, the suit may not be portrayed as well as, you know, how they want to. For instance, Exia. With the GN sword, he doesn't use the primary fire isn't Exia's gun. It's beam daggers. But I think for most surface level Gundam fans, I think most will probably enjoy the fact that you get to play as your favorite suits in this game. So I think that's what matters. I think what matters more is if, you know, if you're playing the game and if you're having fun with it. And I do think playing through this, you are from the about 4 hours, give or take, that I played on my channel, on my Twitch stream, which is twitch.tv/azurb5. It's very fun. It's very fun, fast paced. It's basically just, it's, as most people referred to it when we first saw it, Gundam Overwatch, where it was fast paced shooting and stuff like that. So overall, that's just kind of how I feel in terms of how you know, how all the suits play, how movement is in this game. So overall, I'm enjoying it. There's definitely some familiar territory to me as someone who, I wouldn't say try hard in Overwatch, but definitely has quite a bit of knowledge in the field of Overwatch in terms of like how that type of shooter works. So yeah, overall, I love what I played. I love what I played, and you know, I really hope this game does well. So, with that out of the way, if you guys came here for the first time because this is because you kind of wanted maybe a general rundown of how movement is like in this game, and you know, what suit may be good for you, I'm glad to help. Of course, you know, I am just one person of probably many opinions, but these were my views of how these shoots should be maybe confronted. And yeah, overall, yeah, it's a good experience to kind of teach some people. I wouldn't say I'm the best at teaching, but if my opinion helped you further your mind and knowledge of how to tackle this game, then you're welcome. So thank you so much for watching my video on how these suits work, and I will see you guys next time if I decide maybe these videos are a nice treat to watch, if somehow my teaching is very good and maybe relaxing, or informative enough for you to get an idea of what to do and how to and what suit may be better for certain situations. So with that out of the way, I will see you guys next time. Catch you later.